listen to me. This moment, this very second you're living right now, it's not random. That anxiety, that heartbreak, that confusion, it's not chaos. It's a call, a spiritual wake-up call. Because God is done watching you shrink. He's done watching you sleep through your purpose. The shaking in your life is the sound of your comfort zone cracking. Why? Because your destiny is too powerful to stay buried. So if you've been feeling lost, overwhelmed, or like your life is being torn apart, good, that means you're being awakened. This is not the end, it's the beginning of who you were born to become. Pain is not punishment, it's a divine alarm. We live in a world that's trained us to avoid pain, to silence discomfort, to numb ourselves the moment we feel anything remotely challenging. We've been sold this illusion that if something hurts, it's wrong. If something feels heavy, we must be broken. But the truth is, pain is one of the most powerful tools God uses to speak to us. It's not sent to destroy you. It's sent to awaken something in you that has been dormant for far too long. It's the alarm clock for your soul. When life becomes too loud, when you're caught in routines that no longer serve you, when you've drifted so far from your purpose that you can't even recognize your own reflection, pain becomes the divine signal. It's the moment God stops whispering and starts shaking. You've probably asked, why is this happening to me? But that's the wrong question. The real question is, what is this trying to show me? That heartbreak that shattered you? It was never meant to leave you broken. It was meant to wake you up to the truth you were avoiding. That job you lost, that plan that failed, that door that slammed in your face. None of it was punishment. It was preparation. It was redirection. It was God pulling you back into alignment with who you really are. Think about it. When are you most alert? When everything is going right? Or when everything starts to fall apart? Comfort makes us complacent. But pain snaps us out of autopilot. Pain forces us to confront what we've been ignoring. Pain exposes the cracks in the foundation we thought was solid. And when you look closely, when you stop trying to escape it, you realize that pain is precise. It hits the exact areas of your life that need your attention. It doesn't scatter blindly. It targets what must be transformed. It could be your mindset. Maybe you've been trapped in limiting beliefs for years, believing you're not enough, believing you're too far gone, believing your past defines your future. So what does pain do? It places you in a situation that challenges those beliefs. It forces you to question them. It disrupts the lies you've made your identity, or maybe it's your relationships. You've surrounded yourself with people who drain you, who don't see your worth, who feed your fears instead of your faith. So what happens? Those connections start to crumble. The betrayal stings, the abandonment hurts. It's death. But it's not cruelty, it's clarity. God is removing what's blocking your growth, not because you don't deserve love, but because you deserve better than what you've been tolerating. Every time pain shows up, it carries a purpose. It's not there to keep you stuck. It's there to push you forward. To evolve you, to mature you, to elevate you into the next version of yourself. The version you prayed for, the version you were born to become. And it doesn't always come in fire and fury. Sometimes pain is subtle, quiet discontent, a whisper that says, isn't it? A gnawing sense that something is off, even if everyone else thinks your life looks perfect. That's still divine. That's still holy. And it deserves your attention just as much as the louder moments. The biggest trap is mistaking pain for abandonment. Thinking God has turned his back on you because you're hurting. But let me be clear, God doesn't abandon. He refines, he tests, he prepares. You're being molded through fire, not left to burn. The pain you feel is not a sign of distance. It's a sign of divine closeness. It means God cares enough about your potential to disrupt your patterns. He sees what's in you, and he won't let you settle for less. That leads into discomfort being the starting point of transformation. Discomfort is not the enemy. It's the beginning. It's the space between who you were and who you're becoming. And the thing about transformation is, it never happens in convenience. You don't grow where it's easy. You grow where it's stretching, where it's uncertain, where you feel the tension between staying the same and stepping into something greater. That tension, that's where your breakthrough lives. Transformation doesn't come wrapped in certainty. It comes disguised as fear, risk, and the unknown. That leap of faith you're afraid to take, that's the moment transformation begins. That uncomfortable conversation you've been avoiding, that's the door to emotional freedom. That decision to let go of who you were so you can become who you're meant to be, that's divine progress. And you won't always feel ready. Most of the time you won't. But discomfort doesn't mean you're doing something wrong. It means you're doing something real. We confuse peace with comfort, but real peace often requires disruption. Sometimes the most peaceful choice is the one that costs you everything familiar. Because comfort can be a cage. It can keep you trapped in cycles you've outgrown. It can seduce you into shrinking, into playing small, into pretending you're okay with a life that doesn't inspire you anymore. Discomfort, on the other hand, is the sign that you're alive, that you're shifting, that you're expanding. And yes, it's messy. Growth always is, but it's sacred too. You don't become who you're meant to be by staying where it's safe. You have to step into the wilderness, into the unknown, into the wild spaces where faith is the only thing you have to stand on. That's where transformation happens, not in theory, but in real time, in the mess, in the stretch, in the surrender. It's not glamorous, it's not always visible, but it's happening beneath the surface. Every choice to keep going. Every step into discomfort. Every moment you refuse to quit. That's the transformation process in motion. And here's what's wild. Once you embrace discomfort, it stops controlling you. Once you understand that it's necessary, you stop fearing it. You start welcoming it. You start welcoming it. Because you realize this is where the shift starts. This is where the old you begins to fall away. This is where clarity rises, purpose ignites, courage emerges, not in the absence of discomfort, but in the presence of it. Because that's the proving ground. That's where the real work begins. God removes comfort to reveal calling. It's easy to settle into a rhythm where everything feels safe, predictable, manageable. We wake up, go through the motions, follow routines, and call it life. Deep down, something feels flat. Something feels dull. It's not that we're miserable. It's that we're numb. We've confused stability with fulfillment. We think because everything is a fine, we must be in alignment. But a fine is often the enemy of greatness. And that's where God steps in. Not to take things away from you out of cruelty, but to shake you out of your comfort zone so you can step into the calling that was always inside you. Comfort creates blindness. It masks the areas in your life that are dying slowly. It's deceptive because nothing is dramatically wrong, yet nothing is fully alive either. God sees what you were created to do. He sees the potential that comfort is slowly suffocating. So when he starts removing people, stripping away false identities, closing doors you thought were permanent, that's not rejection, that's revelation. It's the divine way of making space for something greater, for something more aligned, for something that actually reflects your calling. Your calling doesn't exist in the zone of ease. It's forged in challenge. It's uncovered in moments when you're forced to grow beyond what's familiar. You don't find your calling when life is going exactly the way you planned. You find it when the plan falls apart and something inside you refuses to give up. You find it when you're pushed to ask, oh, why am I really here? You discover it when comfort is no longer an option and you have to choose courage instead. God isn't interested in your comfort. He's invested in your character. He's building something deeper inside of you, something unshakable, and that requires friction. That requires disruption. Sometimes the very things we pray to hold on to are the things God has to remove in order to get us back on track. That job you clung to because it was secure, that relationship you settled for because it felt safe, that version of yourself you've outgrown but kept living inside because change felt too risky, God will challenge all of it. Be. Not because you're being punished, but because he loves you too much to let you stay stuck. If you're in a season where it feels like things are falling apart, don't run. Don't numb. Don't shrink. Get curious. Ask what the discomfort is trying to tell you. Because often the chaos is not meant to break you, but to break off what's no longer serving you. That is how God reveals the deeper assignment on your life. You were not called to comfort. You were called to contribute. You were called to lead. You were called to lead. You were called to rise. And God will allow anything that threatens to steal that from you to be removed so the real you can stand up. Every frustration carries a message from above. Frustration is a divine frequency. It's the emotional signal that something needs to shift. It shows up when your external world no longer matches your internal truth. It shows up when your soul is screaming for change, but your habits are keeping you stagnant. We often see frustration as a nuisance, something to be ignored, silenced, or endured. It's actually sacred. It's how God gets your attention when you've been ignoring the whispers. You're not just frustrated for no reason. There's something deeper beneath it. Something you're meant to outgrow, leave behind, or finally face. That sense of irritation, that restlessness, it's a holy tension. It's the inner warning system that says, "We're built for more than this." We try to distract ourselves from it with entertainment, with busy schedules, with chasing temporary highs, but the frustration stays. Because it's not something you can outrun. It's not surface level, it's spiritual. Frustration is often the bridge between where you are and where you're meant to go. It's the pressure point God uses to activate purpose. When you feel trapped in your situation, when you feel like you're not using your full potential, that's not just random, it's divine data. It's divine data. It's insight into what needs to change, what needs to heal, what needs to be released. And if you're brave enough to face it instead of avoiding it, you'll unlock transformation that complacency could never give you. The moments you feel most frustrated are often the moments right before clarity, right before you finally decide that enough is enough, that you can't keep living this way, that something has to shift. That's the threshold of breakthrough, but only if you listen to the message, only if you stop pretending it's not there. Frustration points to the parts of your life where you've been settling. It highlights what you're tolerating that you no longer need to, and it will persist until you move. God doesn't waste frustration. He uses it. It's the internal fire that pushes you out of places you've overstayed. It's the discomfort that forces you to level up. It's what makes you finally take the leap you've been delaying. But only if you're willing to get honest. Most people numb their frustration instead of confronting it, but that only delays the calling. You can't sleep through your purpose. God will keep stirring your spirit until you listen. You were never created to live a life of silent frustration. You were made to live aligned, on purpose, awake. And sometimes that awakening comes through the emotions we were taught to suppress. Frustration, when you lean into it, becomes fuel. It becomes clarity. It becomes direction. It's the pressure before the pivot. It's the weight before the release. It's not the enemy, it's a God. God uses it to speak to you in ways stillness never could. Because when you're frustrated, you're paying attention. You're searching. You're ready to move. So if you're feeling it right now, if life feels uncomfortable, if things are shifting and you don't understand why, it's okay. You're not off track. You're being rerouted. You're being stretched into the next level of your calling. The life you asked for, the version of yourself you prayed to become, it's on the other side of this friction. You're being positioned, not punished. Prepared, not abandoned. This is divine recalibration. This is how God wakes you up. You're not lost, you're being redirected. Sometimes life takes a turn so sharp that you begin to question everything. You look around and suddenly the plans you made, the goals you were working toward, the identity you clung to, they all start to feel irrelevant. And it's in those moments that the voice in your head starts screaming, I'm lost. But what if that voice is wrong? What if you're not lost at all? What if you're not lost at all? What if what feels like confusion is actually clarity in disguise? What if the detour is not a delay, but a divine redirection? The truth is, we're trained to see progress in straight lines. We're taught to believe that if we're not moving forward according to our timeline, then we must be off course. But growth doesn't always look like progress. Sometimes growth looks like being stuck. Sometimes it looks like doors closing, opportunities vanishing, and options running dry. And in those moments, we panic. We assume something's gone wrong. But this is exactly where redirection begins. You didn't fail, you were rerouted. And that reroute wasn't random, it was strategic, it was spiritual. When God redirects you, it often feels like disorientation. You're being pulled away from what's familiar, and that feels like loss. But it's not loss, it's liberation. It's the freedom to let go of what you've outgrown, to surrender the illusion of control, to detach from the identity you built in survival mode so you can discover the one built in truth. Feeling lost is a necessary phase in the process of becoming. It means you're no longer where you were, but not yet where you're going. It's the middle ground, and it's sacred. This is the part most people rush. They try to force clarity, force solutions, force movement. But real redirection requires stillness. It demands trust. It's not about having all the answers. It's about being willing to walk without them. To trust that the same God who led you into the unknown is the same God who's leading you through it. You're not wandering aimlessly, you're being shaped. And every detour has a destination that's greater than the one you had in mind. Your redirection is not punishment, it's precision. It's God stepping in and saying, there's more for you than this. It's His way of pulling you back into alignment when you've settled for less than what you're worth. And while it may not make sense in the moment, hindsight will reveal the masterpiece in what felt like a mess. You'll look back and see how every no made room for the right yes, how every delay built your resilience, how every closed door protected your purpose. You may feel lost, but you're not. You're in the process of being made. You're being stripped of the noise so you can finally hear what matters. You're being emptied so you can be filled with something new. That feeling of being lost, it's not the end. It's the beginning of something divine. You're being called forward, not because you failed, but because you're ready. Ready for more. Ready for truth. Ready for who you were always meant to become. Awakening begins with brutal honesty. There is no transformation without truth. And truth, the kind that frees you, rarely comes easy. It usually comes with a cost. The cost of confronting everything you've pretended not to see. The cost of facing the stories you've been telling yourself to stay small. The cost of owning your patterns, your pain, your compromises. Brutal honesty isn't cruel, it's sacred. It's the moment your soul finally decides it's done lying to itself. You can't awaken to your purpose while avoiding your pain. You can't step into your future while dragging the weight of denial. There comes a point in every person's life where the gap between who they are and who they're pretending to be becomes unbearable. That's the threshold, that's the breaking point. And that's where awakening begins. When you finally stop numbing, when you stop justifying, when you stop settling for a life that looks good on the outside but feels hollow on the inside. Brutal honesty is the mirror that doesn't lie. It reflects the version of you that's been hiding beneath fear, beneath expectations, beneath the need to be liked or accepted. It reveals the truth you've avoided because you were afraid of what it would cost. But here's the thing. The price of staying asleep is far greater than the price of waking up. One costs your comfort, the other costs your soul. And when you finally choose honesty, radical, unfiltered, soul-shaking honesty, you begin to see clearly. You start recognizing the people, habits, and environments that have been draining you. You notice where you've been making excuses. You hear the whisper of your true self that you've silenced for far too long. That's when the real shift begins. That's when God can step in and align your life with purpose, because you've finally cleared out the illusions. Honesty is the doorway to healing. You can't heal what you won't admit is broken. You can't shift what you refuse to acknowledge. And so many of us are stuck, not because we're incapable of change, but because we're unwilling to be honest. Honest about the pain, honest about the jealousy, honest about the fact that we're afraid. But that kind of honesty doesn't make you weak. It makes you powerful. Because in truth, there's clarity. And in clarity, there's freedom. This is the moment where your awakening begins. Not when things get easier, not when someone else changes, but when you tell yourself the truth and decide you're done living in a fog. You're done pretending. You're done settling. That kind of decision changes everything. That kind of honesty is the spiritual alarm clock. It's what God uses to shake you awake, not to hurt you, but to save you. To rescue you from the sleepwalking version of your life. To guide you back to the version of you that's alive, aware, and aligned. And yes, it's going to be uncomfortable. Growth always is. The truth always is. But if you want a life that feels like purpose instead of performance, if you want peace that's not dependent on pretending, if you want to be used by God in ways you've never imagined, you've got to start by being honest with yourself. That's where the breakthrough lives, not in the perfect plan. Not in the applause, but in the raw, honest decision to wake up. You must choose growth over familiarity. That choice doesn't happen once, it happens every single day. Every moment you are presented with a decision. Stay where it's safe, predictable, and comfortable, or step into the uncertainty of who you could become. And let's be clear, growth is not always glamorous. It's messy, it's painful. It requires that you let go of who you were so you can step into who you're meant to be. Familiarity will always tempt you because it feels easy. But easy doesn't build character. Easy doesn't change lives. Easy doesn't fulfill your calling. Familiarity whispers to you, stay here. You know this pain. It convinces you that predictability is peace. But peace doesn't come from staying small. Peace comes from alignment. Real peace is born when your choices reflect your purpose. Familiarity keeps you in cycles, old habits, old relationships, old stories. And here's the hard truth. Some of you are miserable not because life is cruel, but because you've chosen comfort over calling. You're stuck in what's known because you're afraid of the cost of stepping out. I know, but that fear is not your enemy. That fear is your teacher. Growth demands that you outgrow people, places, and even parts of yourself. It's lonely. It's stretching. It will break you open. But in that breaking, something greater is built. Every step into growth strips away the layers of who you were pretending to be. It confronts your ego. It demands humility. It requires courage. Because when you choose growth, you are telling God, I trust you more than I trust my comfort zone. And that's powerful. That's when life shifts. That's when you stop living on autopilot and start living awake. Choosing growth means disappointing people. It means saying no to things that once defined you. It means being misunderstood. But that's the price of elevation. You cannot rise while clinging to what you've outgrown. You've got to risk looking foolish, risk being judged, risk falling flat on your face. Because the alternative, staying stuck in a version of your life that doesn't challenge or inspire you, is far worse. Familiarity feels safe, but it's suffocating. It keeps your potential caged behind fear and excuses. You weren't made to survive. You were made to soar. But you can't soar while carrying the weight of who you used to be. And you can't grow if you refuse to leave what's familiar. That job, that relationship, that old mindset, it served a season, but now it's time to evolve. Choosing growth means stepping into the unknown and trusting that the discomfort is proof you're moving in the right direction. Because nothing changes until you change. And no transformation comes without the decision to leave the familiar behind. God shakes what doesn't serve your future. That shaking, it's not to destroy you, it's to wake you. Because let's face it, most people don't change when they see the light, they change when they feel the heat. And when your world starts to shake, when things fall apart, when comfort is stripped away, when doors slam shut, it's not random, it's not cruelty, it's alignment. It's God removing the things that were never meant to go with you into your next chapter. The shaking is sacred. It reveals what's real. It exposes the weak foundations. It forces you to confront the truth you've been avoiding. That relationship you idolized, shaken. That identity you built on achievements, shaken. That false sense of control, shaken. And in that shaking, God is saying, I love you too much to let you stay here. Because what served you in one season might destroy you in the next. And so he shakes it loose, not to punish you, but to prepare you. Shaking is the pruning process. It cuts off what's dead, what's toxic, what's unnecessary. And yes, it hurts. Yes, it feels unfair. But it's making room for something greater. Every shakeup is a setup. A setup for growth, clarity, power. A setup for purpose. And sometimes the only way to hear what God is really saying is for him to strip away everything else. That's what the shaking does. It silences the noise, removes the distractions, and centers you in truth. You see, when life shakes, most people panic. They try to grab back what's falling away. They try to fix what God is trying to remove. But what if instead of resisting the shake, you surrendered to it? What if you allowed it to refine you instead of define you? That's where transformation begins. When you realize that the shaking is not the end of the world, it's the beginning of a new one. One that's built on truth, integrity, purpose, and alignment with who you're becoming. Every storm you faced, every breakdown, every moment that felt like it was falling apart, it was God shaking what couldn't go with you into the next level. And he will keep shaking it until you listen, until you get honest, until you stop settling, because your future is too important. Your calling is too valuable, and your purpose is too great to be buried under things that no longer serve you. So the question isn't, why is this happening? The question is, what is this shaking trying to teach me? What is God trying to remove? What is he trying to reveal? And is he trying to reveal? What strength is he building in you? Because the shaking is never random. It's always targeted. It's divine disruption. It's heaven interrupting your comfort so you can wake up to your calling. And in the middle of that shaking, you will want to run. You'll want to go back to what's easy. But don't. Stand firm. Stay grounded. Let the shaking do its work. Because on the other side of it is clarity like you've never known. Power like you've never accessed. Vision like you've never dreamed. The kind of clarity that doesn't just make life easier. It makes life meaningful. So if your world is shaking right now, if things are falling apart, if you feel like you're losing everything, good. It means something new is being built. It means God is doing what only he can do. Removing what's shallow, what's weak, what's false. And what remains after the shaking is what's real. What's strong, what's aligned, what's ready. You don't have to fear the shaking. You just have to trust the hands that are doing the shaking, because they're not random hands, they're holy hands, and they're shaping your future. Let them. Let go of what's familiar. Choose the growth, which is the growth. And trust that what's shaking loose today is making space for the greatness that's coming tomorrow. You've got to understand this. Pain is not punishment. It's an alarm going off in your soul. It's heaven's signal that you've settled too long. It's not your enemy. It's the spark that ignites transformation. And when life feels like it's falling apart, it's often God removing what no longer serves who you're called to be. He's not interested in keeping you comfortable. He's calling you higher. Every frustration is a divine message. Every delay, every detour is redirection. You are not broken, you're being built for more. And that starts with brutal honesty, facing your reflection, and refusing to live one more day asleep to your potential. Because growth doesn't live in the familiar. It demands you to rise, to stretch, to let go. And when God starts shaking your life, he's not trying to destroy it, he's trying to save it. He's shaking loose everything that's small, fake, and shallow. So what remains is truth, purpose, and unshakable strength. So wake up, show up, and stop shrinking. The storm you're in is the sound of your greatness waking up. But God's not done with you. He's just getting started. Wake up, rise up, and step into the life you were born to lead.